Okay, I mentioned it before. Let's get to Josh Rosen, selected 10th overall back in 2018. Rosen now on his third team in 3 years after the Cardinals traded him so they could start fresh with Kyler Murray. And then, of course, the Dolphins released him after they drafted Tua. And he landed with Bruce Arians and the Bucs as their emergency and practice squad. Not the backup. Basically, if things go really awry, keep yourself ready. We'll give you a buzz. Currently, Blaine Gabbert, Ryan Griffin are the main backups to Tom Brady. So, in or out, Rosen landing on Tampa's practice squad to learn under guru Bruce Arians and, of course, the GOAT Tom Brady is the best situation for him. In or out? What do you got?
I'm going to say out of bounds of this, BT, because why he's there is exactly what Bruce Arians was talking about this offseason, previously, this offseason, about how we might stash a quarterback. Josh McCown is this for the Eagles.
Yep.
Stash a quarterback away from the facility. He'll be zooming in and doing all these other things so that he's up to date on the meeting. Maybe he'll watch practice, but he's not going to actually be in the room. It seems like maybe he will be, but I doubt it. So I don't think this is going to help him learn. I think maybe by osmosis he picks up some sort of it. But I'm going to say out of bounds. I don't think this is ideal. And again, as we talk all the time, his situation is just one of the oddest in the history of the NFL for a top 10 selected quarterback.
Not one of, it's the oddest at this point. Right. I'm going to say in bounds, although I really thought about going out of bounds. I got you. If you're not in the building, I don't care who you're working for or with, you'll learn nothing. But I also think that this designation is temporary. I mean, they just got him, so they're not going to thrust him on the depth chart, unfairly or unnecessarily. I think that they can ease him in. I'm not so sure he finishes the season where he's starting as a practice squad, just in case something goes awry kind of a guy. The reason I almost said out of bounds is to get better, you got to play. You got to get reps.
Yep.
And he's not going to play this year, but I also think he needs a stable environment. Not that Miami was unstable a year ago. It wasn't. But certainly the Cardinals situation was. And then last year for him, he didn't get much of a shot. So, I'm going to say inbounds. I don't know that I'm right, but it can't hurt, provided he's around Brady for a little bit at some point. And Bruce Arians, I think it could help him inbound. Well, after his contract expires at the end of the season, apparently GM Daryl Morey throwing some ice cold water on that thought from us and others, telling the USA Today Sports that resigning D'Antoni is ready, quote, probably number one priority. It's a fair way to put it. Is still a quote. We have all of our key players signed. I think Mike coming back is super important. End quote. Wow. In or out. D'Antoni's more to blame for the team's postseason failures than Harden's playoff disappearances.
I mean, I'm going to say out of bounds, but I don't think it's really either. The big part of this is the teams that they've played. Some of these failures were, one was against the Spurs, which is obviously a good team. Coach Popovich knows how to, attack your weaknesses, and that specific example that we always allude to, I think it was 2016, where he got trapped up in the corner and just became listless at that point. That's great coaching. It's a good team. Same thing can be said about the Golden State Warriors. But if I had to choose between one, I'm saying out of bounds, but if I had to choose between one of them, I actually would put it on D'Antoni rather than Harden, simply because when James Harden is off, you got to think of some sort of solution, and he never does. He gets really short with his bench.
He does.
And it's like, all right, where's plan B? We don't have one. Keep shooting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say out of bounds, but there's some caveats in there.
Yeah, you might say keep shooting. Problem is Harden doesn't keep shooting.
Exactly.
There's a lot of problems here. I'm going to say out of bounds as well by default here. Listen, I mean, Mike D'Antoni is not an asset in the playoffs. He's not an asset. I don't believe him as a this force that clearly, because he hasn't won anything yet, although he was very close with the Suns, and if the circumstances were different, he probably would have.
Very good coach.
Very good
counting
coach.
That at all.
Nope, very good coach. But I think that, there's been a lot of games, and I've chronicled, what I've said about Harden all these years. I think that Harden's been very good in the first three quarters of a lot of playoff games that they've lost, and then suddenly either inaccurate or just disengaged shooting the ball in the fourth quarter. Is that on D'Antoni? Is that on Harden? Is that the defense reacting to Harden and then D'Antoni not reacting to the defense's reaction to Harden? I mean, there's 9,000 layers to this. All I know is the way things are going now, Harden's not going to win a championship as the lead guy, and Mike D'Antoni's not going to win a championship as a head coach. So, I mean, obviously Harden's better at what he does relative to what he does than D'Antoni is.
Yeah.
Because D'Antoni's not one of the best coaches in the game, but Harden's one of the best scorers. It's tough, but I'm going to agree. I'm going to say out of bounds. It was odd. During Sunday's Nats-Braves game, umpire Joe West, never afraid to inject himself into the equation here, ejected Nats GM Mike Rizzo, the Rizzo, for not wearing a mask. Well, all right, well, you got to wear a mask. Pandemic, COVID-19, do the right thing. Even though Rizzo was standing by himself in a suite, up in a suite with nobody around. West tossed him. And, of course, Joe West, being Joe West, had to make a big spectacle. Even called for security to escort him out. That was just ridiculous. I mean, come on. Even though baseball has a rule that everybody must wear a mask in the stands, West did go too far, ejecting Rizzo.
I'm going to say out of bounds here
What?
because it is a rule. Right? The umpire is in charge of safety as well as making balls and strikes and outs and safes and everything else. So I'm going to say him out of bounds. I don't think he went too far. I think he tried to make an example of someone, and he did. And it's insignificant. It doesn't affect the outcome of the game at all, so I'm okay with it. It's kind of fun.
I mean, inbounds. There's got to be a common sense clause. I know that there's rules, but there's got to be a subset to the rule where common sense creeps in.
He doesn't know that nobody's in that box with him. He doesn't know.
Well, but then how does he know that? Wait, so you tell me his vantage point, he can see him in the suite without a mask, but he can't see that nobody's around him?
There could be other people around him.
No, nobody was in the suite.
I know, but there could have been like at a latter time or another time. I don't know.
Yeah, it is plausible that somebody was there and they walked out. Listen, I understand what you're saying. A rule is a rule. And pertaining to this, you know, our family's been messed up from minute one. I get it. And we're still messed up. But I think that, you know, if you're going to make people wear masks in stands, then why wouldn't they make them wear it on the field?
That's what I don't understand that, to be honest with you, DT.
And that's not on Joe West. That's just
I agree.
That's a bigger issue.
Just in general, I agree with you on that.
You know? But Joe West flexes too hard, and he could have gone about it a different way. I didn't like the way he executed that, so for that I say inbounds. It was crazy over the weekend. The U.S. Open tennis thrust on a center stage. 17-time Grand Slam winner Novak Djokovic was forced to forfeit his match for accidentally hitting a lineswoman in the throat in frustration. Now, he didn't speak to the media, which is weak. He left. Sent an apology on social media. But tennis legend John McEnroe, who of course had a ton of fits himself back in the day, told ESPN, quote, he's going to be the bad guy for the rest of his career, end quote. Djokovic should not have had to forfeit for his seemingly inadvertent actions. In or out?
That's out of bounds. He definitely had to forfeit. I mean, he drilled this woman.
Yep.
I mean, in some regards, it's not. You always got to be paying attention, especially when these guys are on the court. But action was stopped. He was walking over to take a seat, and he was upset, and he whacked the tennis ball, and it just caught her perfectly. I mean, it could have hit her anywhere else, and it would have been perfectly fine. It caught her right where it hurt the most and caused her to gasp for breath and go to a knee.
Yeah.
I mean, she was out for the count for a while. I'm going to say out of bounds. Yeah, he deserved to be to forfeit that game because it's a rule. Again, it goes back to Joe West. Even though it's a different sport and different circumstances, a rule is a rule, and he broke the rule.
Totally agree. There's no other way to interpret this. The way he did it, you know, if you want to be fair, you know, you can learn a lot about, like, immediate reaction where it's not contrived and his immediate reaction almost like as the ball was hitting the racket, you could tell because he became withdrawn and he was, like, shrieked in horror. He's like, oh, boy, that's not what I wanted to do. And I believe it. I don't think that he was trying to kill the poor lineswoman. You know, but that was scary. And I don't know how many miles per hour that thing was. He obviously didn't, you know, wasn't an overhand serve where he blasted at 140 miles an hour. But that thing had to have 70-mile-per-hour zip on it. I mean, he's a pro tennis player. A little flick of, and he's a great one. A little flick of the wrist. It's like a golfer. Even if they don't swing from the heels, they're still going to get that thing. So, yeah, I agree. Out of bounds. He should not, the way it's phrased a little, should not have had to forfeit. No, he should have had to forfeit. It's the absolute right call, 100%. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.